Greetings, travelers. It's me, Nyckelhypa. I have a question. If there's an old meme criticizing Final Fantasy VII somewhere in the universe, and I make a video response to that meme, in the process, kind of criticizing Final Fantasy VI, is that an overreaction? Or do the ends justify the means? What does it even mean to debunk a meme? Will anyone care? A man can dream, and to dream, I dare. There's too much poetry in the world, isn't there? Let's just get to the video. I wish to say as a preface to the rest of this video that the meme I am about to debunk is just that, a meme. I would bet money that most fans of Final Fantasy VI or VII do not take claims of 7 being a ripoff of 6 seriously. But since this meme exists, and since a few people present it as a pro-FF6 or anti-FF7 argument, I have to debunk it. That's what I do. Builders build, bodybuilders bodybuild, and I defend Final Fantasy VII. And criticize Final Fantasy VI. That does happen on this channel. Sometimes. This is the picture that's been circling in Final Fantasy fan groups for years, and has shown up in a few articles too. As you can tell, it's not exactly an HD image. Hence my belief that most people don't agree with this little meme and its claims. If they did, someone would have made a bigger, better version of it by now. Let's look at these claims one by one, shall we? Supposed ripped off element number 1. Both stories begin with a soldier of an evil organization. Here's why FF7 does not rip off FF6 regarding this. Apart from the fact that both Cloud and Terra were a part of an evil organization, they barely have anything in common. Not only had Cloud already changed sides before the game started, his motivation and backstory differ completely from Terra's. For one, Terra never had a choice in serving the Empire. Gestahl took her as an infant and probably brainwashed her or kept her under control with the slave crown. Cloud, however, joined Shinra of his own free will, because the idea of joining an elite force like Soldier and becoming a hero, akin to Sephiroth, appealed to him. Another key difference between the two was that while Terra was born truly special and became a useful and valued weapon for the Empire, Cloud was just a foot soldier. Cannon fodder. Cloud wasn't born with any special gifts. He didn't come from a special bloodline. His story from zero to hero happened because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you ask me, both characters worked well for the stories of their respective games, but Cloud's backstory was more interesting and relatable to me. Regarding Gestahl's empire and the Shinra company, one's a political entity and the other one is a business entity with some political and military elements thrown in. For me, Shinra was a breath of fresh air because they were more than just another evil empire. Gestahl's empire ruled over its people by being militarily strong, but Shinra was a more modern take on a wicked, controlling organization. As far as I know, Shinra was the first organization in the series to use fear-mongering through media and even false flag operations to keep the people under their control. Sure, destroying an entire sector that is 1/8 of their own city was a little cartoony and over the top, but at least it was something new. In my eyes, Shinra might be the best villains the classic era of Final Fantasy ever gave us. Let me put it like this. If Kefka had won, everyone would have died. If Sephiroth had won, everyone would have died. If Shinra had won, everyone would have been living on a slowly dying planet, consuming propaganda, cheering for the villains, and fearing the people that were trying to do the right thing. It's so easy to see which of these is the most interesting and hits closest to home. Supposed ripped off element number 2. Both main characters had amnesia because of bizarre experiments performed on them. Here's why FF7 does not rip off FF6 regarding this. Main characters with amnesia are a cliché, of course, and have been since forever. But the claim is still almost completely wrong. It goes beyond being a simple oversimplification. First, Terra didn't have amnesia because of experiments. She had amnesia because of the slave crown, which, I might add, was a lame plot convenience that was never brought up again. Cloud suffered from partial amnesia because of Mako experiments, but the more significant and interesting thing was his having confused himself for Zack. That's quite different from the usual old amnesia cliché. Supposed ripped off element number 3. Both Terra and Cloud join resistance fighters. Here's why FF7 does not rip off FF6 regarding this. Yes, both Cloud and Terra join Resistance fighters, but the circumstances couldn't be any more different. Cloud's story no more rips off Terra's than Terra's story rips off Luke Skywalker's. First, here's how the Returners and Avalanche differ. The Returners are clearly in the right. Gestal is an evil autocrat and the leader of a violent expansionistic empire that needs to be stopped. The leaders of Avalanche, on the other hand, are originally motivated by a desire for revenge and are just using saving the planet as an excuse. To an extent, this is just my interpretation, but I think I have a point here. No one, except maybe Jesse, seems to care about the collateral damage they cause when destroying reactors. Both Tifa and Barrett lost their loved ones and their hometowns because of Shinra. It is my opinion that neither Tifa nor Barrett truly cared for the planet more than they did for vengeance before meeting Aerith and learning from Bugenhagen. There's also the minor detail that the Returners are a much bigger group of people with better resources, and they oppose the Empire from afar, whereas Avalanche lives in Midgar, in Tifa's 7th heaven, right under Shinra's nose. Then there's the difference between Terra's and Cloud's motivation for joining the Resistance. Terra is desperate to do the right thing, but Cloud originally joins out of pure self-interest. He's after money and doesn't care about the planet or Avalanche's goals at all. This gave Cloud more room to grow as a character than Terra ever had. Don't get me wrong though, I still think Terra was an excellent character in a wonderful game. Supposed ripped off element number 4. There's a high-ranking soldier in both Gestal's empire and the Shinra company that seeks power for himself. Oh boy, where to begin with this one? Kefka and Sephiroth could barely be any more different in terms of appearances, motivations, and in terms of what makes each of them frightening. Kefka is only a physical threat, a superbly powerful mage who ends the game with the ability to nuke a town in an instant from the top of his tower of power. Sephiroth, while proficient in both magic and swordplay, spends most of the game actually frozen or otherwise immobilized in the North Crater. During the main story, Sephiroth's most threatening power is his telepathic connection to Cloud. He is a mental threat first, not a physical one. That telepathic power and his backstory are what Sephiroth is all about. Kefka went insane because the magic infusion process wasn't yet perfected. Sephiroth was also experimented on, but the experiments were actually a success. Sephiroth lost his mind because he couldn't live with the idea of being a disgusting experiment, not because of the experiment itself. You can probably guess my opinion from a mile away, but I indeed think Sephiroth's backstory and personality are far more interesting, even if Kefka is way funnier than Sephiroth could ever hope to be. Supposed ripped off element number 5. Both Kefka and Sephiroth have an angelic final boss form. Here's why this is totally wrong. No, actually, it is a total ripoff. Not Sephiroth's final form, I mean the missing wing. Somebody ripped it off. Must have been Auron. Joking aside, Kefka's final boss form obviously influenced Sephiroth's final boss form, so that's a fair point. In conclusion, there are obviously thematic similarities between all Final Fantasy games. There are visual similarities and similar plot points, character motivations, twists and turns, and so on. But I think fans are really stretching when they try to imply or outright claim that Final Fantasy VII ripped off Final Fantasy VI in any significant way. This is certainly not something that fans of FF6 desire to hear, but if you ask me, a side-by-side comparison of the fundamental building blocks of both games' stories reveals only how Final Fantasy VII was superior, because it took elements that used to be clichés and twisted them into something unique and uniquely interesting. Sephiroth's backstory avoids the old comic book villain origin story of an experiment gone wrong by doing something different. Cloud is not special from birth, nor is he chosen by fate. He starts out as a nobody, a failure, a loser, and just happens to be in the wrong place when all hell breaks loose. Shinra is a villainous institution that actually does clever things to manipulate the public and doesn't rely solely on military strength. Avalanche are barely the good guys when the story begins, and they don't live far away from the bad guys. Rather, they reside in the belly of the beast. I don't just mean to sing FF7's praises here, but I must give my honest feelings about this topic. That's all I can do. Final Fantasy VI is a great game, especially for its time, and if it hadn't been great, and a great success, we may never have gotten a Final Fantasy VII. I make no secret of it. I prefer FF7 to FF6, and I think 7 is a better game. There are a lot of fans and critics, especially critics, who are of the opposite opinion, and they may have a ton of legitimate reasons for thinking 6 is superior to 7. But suggesting that FF7 ripped off FF6 is certainly not one of those reasons. That claim is just plain wrong. Whichever game you prefer, I wish to thank you for watching this video. Please leave your thoughts in the comments if you have the time and desire to do so. May you always find great art to enjoy, and may you never run out of coffee and cookies. Greetings, travelers. So I felt like doing a little extra bit at the end here, an unscripted extra bit with my crappy phone camera, because I wanted to address two things. The first thing is that, as you may have noticed, I did not address the point in the meme about Sephiroth and Kefka both using a magical item or thing to attempt to destroy the world. And the reason why I didn't address that is actually because I felt that explaining to a fantasy audience that all fantasy stories have a magical MacGuffin that can destroy things, you know, whether it's the One Ring or a cursed sword of some kind. Explaining that to a fantasy audience it would have almost been condescending. It would be like walking up to some random person on the street and saying, "Did you know that when it rains, things get wet?" So that's why I didn't address that. The second and more important point that I wanted to say is that I actually played quite a bit of Final Fantasy VI to record gameplay footage for this video. And while playing it, I once again realized that I actually really love the game. So I hope I didn't come across as too dismissive of Final Fantasy VI in this video, because while I personally feel that there are a lot of flaws in that game that go unnoticed or just aren't mentioned by fans and critics, I feel like Final Fantasy VI has a kind of undeserved reputation of being the perfect best Final Fantasy game. While I personally don't agree with that, that doesn't mean that I should attempt to turn my channel into like a one-man, one-channel overcorrection facility for that issue, if it can be considered an issue. Because I really like Final Fantasy VI. I truly do love that game. And to end this video, this extra bit, on a positive note for Final Fantasy VI and its fans, allow me to turn to those fans of Final Fantasy VII who maybe have not played Final Fantasy VI and who maybe enjoyed my video and like the fact that there's someone out there defending Final Fantasy VII from criticism. If you haven't played Final Fantasy VI, don't let the fact that it's an older game, really old by now, stop you from playing it. Give it a chance, because I guarantee you, by the time you're like 2 hours into the game, you will be hooked. Like the pixel perfect design of that game, the cute character design, and if nothing else, the music will have you hooked, because I think Final Fantasy VI probably does have the best soundtrack in the franchise. I think there are moments where I feel like Final Fantasy VII's soundtrack, when it shines brightest, it's better than anything else, but Final Fantasy VI has a far more consistent soundtrack. There isn't a weak or even mediocre song on the entire thing. It's just pure gold, next level, world class, you know, it's Nobuo Uematsu, so. Those are the two things I felt like addressing. Play Final Fantasy VI, and thanks for watching. Bye.